Stuff. Well, the male lion, who's like, the big mane, the king of the jungle, he just sits around, does nothing basically. He does have an important role. He protects the pride, so he patrols at night, and if another lion came by, he would, attack. But basically, the female lion, they do it all, cooking, everything.
This film was interesting in the way that you could kind of see the seasons changing behind this guy a little bit through his car. The entire film took place in his car. It was segments that he clearly had posted, I'm going to say, on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, something like that, about his comedy and his political musings. It kind of seemed like he was slowly losing his mind as the pandemic went on, where at first he started out funny, and then by the end he was just ranting and raving, where it wasn't really humorous anymore. It was just frustration. He's what this film does need cleaned up a little bit, edited a little bit, where it flows a little bit better, but it really shows the mindset of what this guy Mike was going through during the pandemic, where he was sitting out in his car trying to work on his bits, but really he was kind of slowly losing his mind, which is probably reflective of what everybody was doing at that time. He was going off about politics and started out making fun of politicians, and then just was ranting about them, and then kind of just frustrated with the world in general. This is a film that I think a lot of people could probably relate to, that especially those who were really fearful in areas where COVID was in higher numbers, they could probably get that. A lot of them that really gave into the fear could relate to him in losing his mind, especially during the lockdowns when it seemed like they were lasting forever. It was just really him in his head, and it was interesting to see the thought process of this one man as he goes from the funniness to slowly angrier and angrier, where it was quite interesting to see how he went. It would be nice to have a follow-up to this, to see what happened next, what happened after the pandemic was over, when it was released, if Mike went back to comedy, if he went back to trying to live normal, or if he was just a permanently angry guy.
Comic in COVID. Wow, what an interesting experience. Okay, this is a very interesting project for several reasons. The main of which is that um, it's not a film per se, and it's not exactly a documentary. It feels like a documentary, but it's not exactly a documentary. Instead, it's more of an experimental project in which a comedian records his comedy routines, his comedy practices on his car during the COVID pandemic, because he can do it at home, and it's all very real. I mean, it's all of this is real, and all of these are his his act, uh, his comedy practices, and at first you feel like you're watching just a comedian working on his act, and you laugh at some of his jokes. Some of these segments are very good, are very funny. I especially like the one about the medicine and the commercials, about how people in commercials about medicine are always so happy and everything, which is something darkly ironic considering the whole health issue and health access in the United States. But anyway, the point is that that was very funny, and I like this guy. He's very honest, he's very genuine, and he can be very funny. But what really made the film or the documentary work for me was the final segment, because okay, this guy is recording his views on the pandemics and politics and media, everything, through the pandemic time, and you laugh for the most of the documentary of his records. But then you get to the ending, to the final segment, and it's no laughing matter. The guy is clearly upset, and we can join him in this anger, and it's brutal. I mean, the anger, the deception, the sadness he feels towards politics and the media, and how the whole world has going insane, and how America and the world are so divided over everything. It breaks your nerves. He's telling the truth. He's speaking the truth, and it's also very beautiful when he goes and talks about being trying to have more empathy in our lives. That's a great idea. That's something that he's totally right in saying. We need more empathy in these times, especially in 2020 with the whole Black Lives Matter movement and everything. It was a powerful experience. I think that at first I didn't know what exactly was I watching, but in retrospective, I feel like I was watching the the records of a person facing terrible events of 2020 and the times we live in. Because much like, many of us, he starts with this light spirit. He's poking at fun. He's making fun of a couple of things, but little by little you get to feel how crazy he is becoming and how crazy we all were becoming back then. And it's a very powerful experience. It's an interesting experiment, filmmaking wise. And I think it demands a little of patience from the viewer because it's a bit long, it's over 2 hours. But the his comedy act is very good. And what's more important, he has a lot to say. And I think we can all agree on what he's saying. It doesn't matter if you're Republican or Democrat or whatever, we can agree on the things he's saying, the things he's asking, and the anger and those furious, outrageous moments he has at the end. We can all relate to that. So, yes, it's a very interesting piece of documentary. Great idea to record all of these thoughts and opinions about those times. And I don't know what else to say. It was very, very good, man. Well done.
Comic in COVID. Okay, so I totally get what he was doing and where he was coming from. And I loved the premise of this because we all struggled, and especially the performance arts really, really got slammed hard because without an audience, how are you supposed to go to work and make money? So I understand all of that, and I totally understand why he did this in his car. I liked the concept, but there were a lot of technical issues. I think for creativity wise, I have to give him points for that, but a title card on a legal pad where it was very, very difficult to see the notes and read the handwriting and have that be over 3 minutes, it seemed a little bit like we could have shortened that a bit. Maybe a tripod and a ring light that is on sale at Amazon, it would have helped so much with balancing the color and keeping a lot of the shot steady. And it's really cheap to go ahead and do that. But I think kudos to him for his creativity and for putting a lot of heart into this.
Comic in COVID shows pretty much what an artist had to endure in the pandemic. We see the different challenges that Mikey faces amidst the crisis. Starting from day one, he enters the scene after, us seeing his notebook full of ideas ready to be expressed. He talks about how he's in an instant lost his job. He doesn't feel like he could have the space to practice in his own home, leaving him to practice in his car. And so you get this really intimate, rustic version of, a day in the life of an artist, but it extends farther than just a day. It extends the whole pandemic. And you get to see Mikey essentially take on these moments that we have to find humorous, and he puts this crude, comic twist to it that could be similar to moments that we're familiar with shows like Black Mirror, for instance. It's kind of leaning more towards a satire type of humor that we're ultimately being delivered with.